My name's Kevin Donaldson, and we're here at the Super Goal Fundraiser golf outing with three amazing individuals who are doing such great things for their community. But we're here to answer one simple question. We brought everybody here for one simple question, and that question is there purpose in suffering? I believe that suffering is the only question that needs to be answered in life. It's counterintuitive to human instinct to run towards any type of suffering. It's human instinct to always run away from danger. I believe you need to run towards it. Years ago, I was reading a book, and it was how to survive certain critical incidents. And one of these critical incidents was a prairie fire. Now, we're in New Jersey. There's no prairie fires in here. However, if you saw a prairie fire coming, you're going to run away from it. It's danger, right? Well, oddly enough, the way to survive a prairie fire is to run towards the prairie fire. Because if you run away from it, it's going to get larger, and before you know it, it's going to consume you, and it's going to kill you. But if you run towards a prairie fire, you're going to make it through, charred, scarred, but you're going to be alive. So my question, is there purpose in suffering? Absolutely, there's purpose in suffering. And we're going to get into that a little bit today. We're sitting down here with Rouson. Everybody knows Lee. He's just an amazing guy. Michele Hirsch, who I've recently met, grown to love. Her personality is magnetic, I'm gonna have to say.
Thank you.
And another one of my two new friends, listen, I'm allowed to make fun of Italians just because my wife's Italian. No, I'm only kidding you. Tina Magarino of Birth Haven. Welcome everybody, and thank you all for being here. But let's just take a moment to tell our audience a little bit about yourself. Lee, let's start with you.
Well, yes, they call us legends now. I'm a former professional football player with the New York Football Giants. Been done for quite a few years now, but I have the privilege and the opportunity to be a part of the community, and I helped put together the Super Goal Fundraiser. And in the very vision of this organization, this nonprofit organization, is a community where all members of that community work together to attain the goal. It sounds like a kind of a football type of thing, right? You know, where that's the one thing I miss playing football for the Giants, where everybody who, even though we were all unique, we were from different places, we had the same vision. So that's the vision statement for Super Goal Fundraiser. And our mission to achieve that statement is where we inspire ideas, creative ideas, together.
Together is a very important word. If you're looking at this panel up here, we all come from different backgrounds, we all look differently, but that's the beauty of it, because people of different backgrounds can all come together for one common goal and find purpose collectively in the suffering. Michele, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Hi, thank you. I'm Michele Hirsch, and I consider myself a student of life and a mentor to others. And I partner with Lee in Move Your Chains. And I'm
I know
happy
you're
to be
very
here.
close with Lee, and the reason I know that, when I saw you show up today, and I'd never met you, and I watched you give Lee a hug, and it was the warmest, most loving hug. You can tell that you honestly have care for one another the way you embraced. It was really nice to see.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, I watch everybody, so don't take offense. So I just watch it.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you. And it definitely is how I feel.
Now, Tina Magarino is our guest today, and you are from Birth Haven, and it's a women's shelter. But before you get into exactly what you do, I'd like you to tell a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Tina Magarino. I'm the executive director of Birth Haven. Birth Haven is a homeless shelter for pregnant women, and my role at the shelter is to oversee all of the residents in the shelter and all of the staff to make sure that we are accomplishing our mission every day.
There's no pregnant men in your shelter? That doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound right. No, I'm only kidding you. But you see suffering on a different level every single day by these women, and I'm going to make probably a rash assumption that your women are young, they're scared, they have nowhere to go. Obviously, they have nowhere to go. Their families have probably, this is the retired police officer in me. Their families have probably rejected them and probably not accepted their new life, but they are with child, they're pregnant, maybe they made some difficult decisions or wrong decisions or mistakes, but we all make mistakes. Isn't that true?
Yeah, so the moms that come to Birth Haven, a variety of ages, we accept minors and adults. The common ground is that they all are pregnant and without a place to live. We see a lot of different scenarios in the shelter. So we have women that are chronically homeless that really haven't ever had a supportive family. They've been in foster care, or maybe gone from group home to group home, and have been pregnant and then have turned to Birth Haven. But we also see women who are situationally homeless, have never experienced homelessness before, can be right from our own community. And just the crisis of the unplanned pregnancy has caused them to be without a home. So they're either asked to leave the current home that they're in, or their family is not on board, with them carrying the pregnancy to term. And it's actually very common still nowadays where families ask, the women to leave. And
that's a really foreign concept to me. Being a father, my children, I will always accept them. I may not be able to affirm their behavior, but I will always accept them. So the fact that parents, and I don't know the situation that they are in, but the fact that the parents did not even accept them on the lowest level of family, how does that happen, and how do the women feel about that when they show up?
I think that there's, just like every family situation, I think there's levels of crisis going on within the family, whether, it could be substance abuse, it could be mental health issues. I feel that every family has something. That,
everybody has something.
Right, that they are
Please
working
don't ever
through.
look in my closet.
Right. So regardless of homelessness or not, but I feel that every family is coping with something of their own. And this unexpected pregnancy is usually just a crisis within the family, because maybe what I've seen is the parents are just angry because it's their visions of what they wanted for their child, they feel are ruined. And I understand that concept at first, because it's so much, that initial shock is a lot to go through. Right.
It's a lot to handle.
So I see a lot of the, you're never going to be able to go to college. How are you going to get insurance? How are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? And again, it's not going to be an easy road, but that initial shock, the parents just don't know how to cope.
Because they've never been in that situation before.
Correct.
They are suffering on a different, even the parents who rejected their own children who are now with child are suffering in some form because they don't know how to react to this situation, this new situation they've been thrust into. These women, they're doing the right thing. They want to have their children, correct? None of them have chose the other path, which is abortion. So that's an admirable trait. That's it's a building block.
I always find it so courageous that the women that come to us, the women that come to us, many of them now, when we look at our statistics, find us online. Before, we used to get a lot of referrals from different schools or churches, guidance counselors. But now, primarily, the residents are finding us online. And they have decided that they want to carry the pregnancy to term. So they come to us with just looking for a place to stay. That's their initial concern. And I always find it so courageous for them to do that, because we do take, we don't just necessarily take in Sussex County, we take from the tri-state area. So if a client is pregnant and homeless, they call us, they come to us, they don't know the staff, they don't know any of the other residents. Many of the times they don't even know the community. And they still are so determined to carry this pregnancy to term that none of that matters.
Can you all just imagine what it's like for these women to be thrust into this situation? They don't know anybody, they're in a strange place, and they have to deal with this other life growing inside of them. These women might be the strongest women I've ever heard of in my life. At what they would think is their lowest possible.
Well, I know you're not looking at me, Kevin. I'm not a woman. Maybe Michele, you can answer that question or respond to it. What do you think about it?
I'm looking at it from a man's perspective,
understand.
and I find it just shocking.
It sounds terrifying.
It does.
It really does.
I don't like to sleep anywhere else but my own bed, and now they have all these new responsibilities that are thrust upon them. However, if you look at any great story throughout history, and I'm talking throughout literature, I don't know if anybody's aware what the the hero's journey is. A guy named Joseph Campbell wrote a book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces. And he broke down in every piece, every great story throughout history, that there's three elements. It's the separation, the initiation, and the return. Everything from Beowulf to Star Wars has these three elements in there. And these women are on that journey. And they've already started on that journey. They've already separated. And once they have that child, now they're going to be initiated. And eventually, and I'm assuming with your programs in there, you're going to assist them in returning to quote unquote normal life, although they're going to find out there's no such thing. So how do you assist one of these women in there with that return? Because, hey, the initiation's going to happen, whether they want it to or not. That baby's coming.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think what I see is they're all survivors in their own sense of the world. And they, you know, like that quote, fall down 7, stand up 8. They're going to keep getting up, and they're going to keep going. And it's a remarkable group of women that I've had the privilege of meeting and working with. But when they come in, they don't see that yet. And they don't see all of the steps that they've already taken.
I love the fact that you say it's your privilege to know them, when they're probably looking at you and saying the same thing. Wow, this is a privilege to be taken in by this household, by this birth haven, and taken care of, and allowing me to go through my pregnancy, yet you still think it's a privilege to know them.
Right.
It's an amazing, that's really admirable trait that you have, Tina.
Thank you. I mean, when the calls come in, I've been working there 12 years, and they are still surprise me. You know, I've had calls. I had a call in the middle of winter from a police officer that found a client that was pregnant sleeping outside in a tent by the train tracks. And she had been there in the middle of the winter for weeks, but she survived. She didn't know of us. She didn't have cell phone access. She couldn't find. The police officer got her to our shelter, and she did really well. But it's just to even think about overcoming something like that, it's remarkable.
It's heartbreaking.
But when the girls come to our program, some of them have dropped out of high school. Some of them, most of them are not working. I mean,
this is in preparation of the future where you're going to get them more involved, correct?
Right.
Yes.
Because when they come to our program, how can you go to work every day if you don't have a place to shower? You don't have a place to sleep. Where are you going to wash your work clothes? You know, it's just those basic things that I feel that myself or a lot of people take for granted, but you see it on a different level. So they're not working because they're not, they don't want to work or they don't want to change their situation. It's just it kind of spirals out of control. And so we feel when we're more of a program. Yes, we're a homeless shelter. You do not have to pay to sleep at our shelter. We have wonderful donors and fundraisers that support our program. But we want to get you on your feet. And we want to teach you the skills, because now it's not just you that needs to, regain housing. You now need to provide for your own child.
Very few people in this world ever know what it's like to be homeless. Unfortunately, in my youth, I know what it's like to be homeless. I was homeless for like a month, where I slept in my car. Here's the wrinkle, and this is why these women are probably the strongest beings I've ever come across, because not only are they homeless, they have to care for this other life growing inside of them. So Birth Haven is really, you're really angels to be taking these women in. And I understand that this stuff, the care and the food and the housing does cost money. So where does your funding come from? Does it come from donors, or do you do fundraisers? How's that happen?
Yeah, so we're privately funded at Birth Haven, and we have 5 fundraisers per year. We try to do raffles and newsletters to give some, stories to our donors. But it's really people helping people. We've been operating for 35 years, privately funded. It's really an incredible thing. People just in the community that want to support our program, support the women. And I think it's a great thing for our residents to see as well, because they come from, maybe family and friends that are not supportive, as we, discussed, and then they come in to see, all of these people attending our fundraisers, or stopping by and dropping off baby items. We have so many community partners that we work together with.
Something as simple as diapers. Anybody that has a child knows you go through those things. It's like a never-ending supply. Those and onesies.
Exactly.
But I imagine that you have, seeing all this different suffering, you can get probably a little fatigued, through a little compassion fatigue. Do you ever have to unburden yourself and maybe speak to somebody? Because the people who take care of others often are the last to get taken care of, and that's you.
I know it is a heavy burden to hear, and especially all the stories, because you feel, as a compassionate person, you just can't imagine some of the things that the clients have gone through. But it's really great to have such a good team that I have at Birth Haven. We have a licensed social worker on site, and we have a case manager as well. And we have a weekly team meeting where we could bounce things off of each other. And I feel that we have an amazing, support system.
In order to
within
break
the
that
shelter.
cycle, because teen pregnancies tend to beget teen pregnancies down the road, but if you can educate them and break that cycle and move the chains, as they say in the football vernacular, that's what your purpose is, and that's what I think is fantastic. But again, to get back to that initial question, the purpose in suffering, because you've seen all this different suffering, and you've seen them coming in to when they're there to when they're leaving. Have you seen purpose in suffering?
One of the most powerful things that I've experienced at Birth Haven is, and I always relate it to when I build a Lego, one of those large Lego kits that you could get with my sons, and you buy this package and it has 1 million pieces, right? And they're all in these packs, and you feel overwhelmed. Like you thought it was such a great idea until you get home and you open this box and you think, oh no, like what am I going to do? I don't even know where to start. So I feel that at Birth Haven, sleeping, wherever they were sleeping, whether it be the subway, the car, outside in a tent, if we could take that initial crisis away and they have a safe place to sleep, that's the foundation.
Just to breathe.
Right. That's just your initial, you're safe, you have a clean place, you have other moms that you're going to get to know that are in similar position. Everybody is from a different place, different circumstances, but everyone's here together. So it's, but that initial foundation is what we do with the shelter. But there's more to it, because as you said, how are we going to break the cycle? How are they going to leave our program in 9 months and not be homeless? Especially with the cost of living. So there's a lot of work that has to be done. And if they have dropped out of high school, they have to re-enroll. So it's a requirement of our program. We're more set up like a program. Yes, we're a shelter, and yes, you're here and you're safe, but there's responsibilities just like anyone has. So you have to go to school, you have to work. We require that our residents save 65% of their income into an escrow account. And so that they have that when they leave our program, so that they could get a security deposit, first month's rent, so that they can break that cycle.
You have a great plan in place, and I think you're doing wonderful work. Now, Michele, you just heard Tina tell some really, it's a tough thing to listen to have these women homeless. Do you find any purpose in the suffering of these women?
Yeah, I think everybody has personal stories and personal suffering, and these women, I mean, my heart goes out to you. I can visualize everything you're saying. It's wonderful, the work that you're doing. But yeah, absolutely, there is purpose. I do feel there's purpose in suffering. I think that when you look at life, we don't win or lose. I think we either win or we learn. And I think that's the purpose in the suffering, is to take the opportunity to learn and grow from it.
I love that idea. Now, Lee, we're talking about moving the chains, breaking that cycle, and this is right up Super Goal Fundraising's alley.
Well, I tell you what, the very mission of Move Your Chains is to help others move toward their goals, just like in football. First down, baby. Move them chains, and help others to overcome the challenges that they face. So. We have in our mentoring, our #1 mentoring program It's called 5.5 Questions for Purposeful Identity. So any one of us in this life, all of us, when we go through all different kind of challenges and sufferings in our lives, the biggest purpose is to really know who we are truly.
I think very few people know who they are truly.
Well,
they pretend, they put on a good mask.
Well, that's one of our struggles. That's one of the areas in life of challenges and just heartaches, and just all different kind of things that we go through is to realize who we truly are, because it's easy to be somebody who you're not, to allow outside forces to define you, to allow the things that happen in your life to define you. But when you go through suffering, when you go through challenges, when you go through hard times, okay, that's the place where you have to make a choice. I tell young people all the time, you're not born winners, you're not born losers, you're born choosers. And once you understand that, it changes things. I was speaking at a funeral the other day, and I said, let my words be the voice of the brother who just passed away. Everybody in here, we're here because of Justin, 24 years old, who just passed away. You all remember his voice. I said, let my words right now be his voice. And what he's saying right now is this: put up your hands. Everybody put their hand up. Says, listen, we all know what our weaknesses are, but we need to know what our strengths are. We need, all of us here need to develop the 5 fingers of strengths. And so I went through like the strength of your thumb. It points right back at you. It's your responsibility to feed and develop and grow your strengths.
Yeah, keep that thumb to yourself, because you stuck it in my chest earlier and it
I
didn't
tell
feel
you,
good.
The thumb is the strongest appendage. It really is. It's the strongest finger you got. When you poke yourself like that, you poke it at your heart or your brain, your mind right here saying, listen, you need to feed your strengths. You need to grow and develop. Know what your strengths are. And the pointing finger right here, it points you into the direction that you need to go. What kind of relationships are you establishing?
Well, it's not just what you're saying, it's how you say it as well. I've seen you in action, Lee. I've seen you speak with youths, and you have something about you. It's not, you have fantastic content coming out of you, but it's something about your presence. They know whatever you're speaking about is coming from a place of understanding. And I think that's just adds to the power of your message. Because your message, standing alone, is better than I've ever heard. But then you telling that message just adds that other power onto it.
And that was the point I was making for everyone who was at this funeral. Let my words be the voice of this young man at 24 years old who passed away. Remember his voice. And I think that's what goes on, Tina, with you in the relationships that you have with these young ladies, is that they remember your voice in all the areas in the program, not just giving them shelter, but the programs helping them to learn their strengths, helping them to learn what their passions are, helping them to know what they want their brand, their reputation to be, helping them to know what they believe and why they believe it. And speaking of why, I want to ask you a question, Tina. All my life, people have said to me, "Yo, Lee, you're a pro football player. You're famous. Everybody thinks you're rich. You rich. Listen, you're the role models for everybody." And a lot of times when people would say this to me, it would be like a lot of parents, right? And they were looking at themselves like, I'm not a role model, but you are the role model. And I really disagree with that. That's why I ask a lot of people this question, which I want to ask you right now. What is your RMI? And now people say, well, what is
credit
that?
Score. Credit score.
It sounds like a credit score, right? But RMI stands for role model identity. And I want to ask you, what is your role model identity? And listen, I'm not going to assume anything, but I want people who's listening to this to get this. And in other words, all of us, we're all role models, but I believe this is the difference. What kind of role model do we choose to become? A positive role model or a negative role model? What's your RMI?
So I think, well, first of all, I think everybody struggles with different things in their life, and nobody's life is perfect. Excuse me.
But role model, being a role model, there's a lot of responsibility to throw on somebody. You're a parent, you're a role model. You're a mother, you're a role model. You're a grandmother, grandfather, you're a professional football player. You run Super Bowl fundraising. You work at Birth Haven. We're all role models in our own rights. It's what kind of role model do you see yourself, or do you want to be? Do you choose to be?
See, that changes everything, because people like the media try to put that pressure on you just because you're famous or you this or that. You are the role models. And so that means that the people who are not famous, or if you're a parent, you're not somebody like some well-known person, you ain't got to be that role model. That's the problem.
Right.
That's why I'm asking Tina right now, what kind of role model does she choose to be? I want the ear of people's hearts to hear what kind of role model she chooses to be. What kind is that, Tina?
So I choose to be a positive role model for the residents, and I think personally, I was a single mom for a lot of years, and I know how hard it is, and I know that you can't give up because you have your children or your child depending on you solely, and it's a lot of pressure, and you just have to keep going, and just like my analogy with the Lego pieces, like I've been there. I get how overwhelming it is, and how you feel like you don't know how you're gonna get there, but you can, and no one can tell you you're not gonna go to college, or you're not gonna do this, or you're not gonna do that. You're the only person who's gonna decide if you're not going to do that. So are you? It might take you longer. Maybe you're not going to graduate in 4 years because you have to worry about childcare or different things. But that's my connection. And I don't usually share it with all of the residents right away, because I want them to see. I want to build the trust. But if at any time they're like, well, how do you know? Or you don't know how hard it is. I do. I know how hard it is. But it's possible.
Yes.
It's possible to get there.
It's possible because somebody else has done it before.
Right.
And your program and the Moving the Chains program, that shows that other people have done it. So if other people can do it, it's not impossible. Being a role model, it's a lot to put on yourself. But ultimately, it's probably going to be the most rewarding thing. And Tina, especially with you, and I know with you, Lee, that you come from a place of experience, and it just adds to the power of your ability to be a role model. You can't be a role model. I can't be a role model about professional football players, because I was never a professional football player, because that whole
Don't forget the one word now. Positive role model.
Positive role model.
See, this we got to change the mindset of this country. The people ask me, they say, well, who was your role model? I said, let me tell you who my positive role model was. It was my mama. It was my mama. It was my grandmamas. And it was some coaches in my life. And I would always say, these were the positive models. They chose to love me. And a lot of times that love was tough love. They weren't saying, Lee, you the best thing since sliced bread. They would get in my face. You're not getting it done, son. Let's go.
Well, you said something very important. So in order to be a proper coach and a proper role model, you at times need to be tough. But you cannot convey that toughness if that person doesn't know that they need to know that you love them.
Yes.
That's the most important.
And love is
thing.
spelled V-E-R-B.
Love is a verb.
It's a verb.
Love is
It's how you act. It's not feelings and emotion. That's just one way that you express it. But it's the choice that you make to be that positive model. It's a choice. When you make, even if you don't feel like it. Because most of the time you don't feel like loving people around you. But when you choose to do it anyway, that's love.
At times in my life, I've been difficult to love, as everybody here, I'm sure, has been difficult to love. And we're coming to the end of this podcast here, and I think there's a lot of great information. Why don't you give everybody, how can we reach out to Birth Haven?
So you could visit our website at birthhaven.org, or you could find us online and reach out to our emails are online as well. Tina at birthhaven.org, or our phone number at 973-579-7979.
Michele, how can we reach out to Super Bowl fundraising?
Well, through Lee.
Through
It's really the
We have a
contact.
website.
Yeah, we have a
we
website.
have a website, Super Bowl Fundraiser.
Okay.
And most definitely. And if somebody wants to reach out to Michele, she's one of the mentors.
Okay.
No doubt about it. And they can request for her to be a part of their mentorship programs.
And I'd give all my information out how to reach out to me, but nobody wants to reach out to me. Thank you all for sitting down here and discussing this very important stuff. I look forward to hearing great things from everybody here in the future. And that's going to do it. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, Kevin.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.